في محادثة يترأسها طارق فؤاد مدير النمو في شروق بارتنرز، سيحدثنا بعض موظفي كريم السابقين والحاليين: باسل النحلوي، أسمى اليمني، وائل نافعي، عن الآلية التي تستطيع من خلالها الشركات الناشئة الأخرى صنع مبتكري المستقبل.
In a conversation moderated by Tarek Fouad, Head of Growth, Shorooq Partners, we will hear from some of Careem's past and current employees, Bassel Nahlaoui, MD Mobility, Asma Alyamani, who is the Head of Product, Mamo Pay, and Wa'al Nafi, Partner at Ra'id Ventures, about how their startups can also shape the innovators of the future. And fun fact, they're also known as the Careem Cartel. So let's see how that goes. The stage is yours.
Thank you.
Test. Mic, awesome. Thank you everyone for joining us in today's panel, and thanks to Shura for putting yet another amazing Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival, just like every year. Today I'm really honored to have three of amazing, I would say, Careem alumnus in a sense, right? Or alumni. And we have Bassel Nahlaoui, who's the Managing Director of Mobility at Careem. We have Wa'al Nafi, who's a partner at Ra'id Ventures that you guys all know. And then obviously we have Asma Alyamani, who's the Head of Product at Mamo Pay. Again, another amazing startup that you guys know. And there is one common thing about them all, which was they were graduates of the Careem Cartel, in a sense, right? And as much as we like Careem, probably the most amazing legacy that Careem has left beyond the reputation on the region as at the forefront of investments in emerging markets was that it graduated and it kind of built the talent that went on to build yet more amazing startups or joint amazing startups, or even in Wa'al's case, obviously joined a venture capital firm and went on the investment side. And the big question becomes, how can we duplicate this, right? How can we create the success over and over again and kind of learn from their experience and the experience of Careem in building the people and building its culture? So I would love to start off with, first of all, Asma, if you can kind of introduce yourself and what have you been doing, Careem, prior to joining Mamo Pay?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. So I joined Careem in 2015, and I joined the product team, and I was leading the consumer product, so the rider experience for Careem, and I was there for 4 years total before I left, and I joined Mamo Pay almost 2 years ago now, at a very early stage, and I've been doing that since.
Thank you, Asma. Wa'al?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So I also joined Careem in 2015. I was the head of product, VP of product there. I left Careem in July of 2020, and I've been with Ra'id Ventures. I think my role is also to kind of find the entrepreneurs and the startups that will be the next Careem. That's kind of my role.
Super. Bassel, let's finish off with you.
Yeah, my name is Bassel Nahlaoui. I'm the current managing director of Careem Mobility. I look after the ride-hailing, food, grocery, and bike businesses. I haven't joined the cartel yet. I'm still part of the Careem team and nurturing the next version of the cartel.
Which will be amazing, because then you can say exactly what's happening on the ground right now, rather than kind of working from memory in a sense. But I guess there is very good bias when it comes to the volume you have on your mic. You're probably louder than all of us. Just love it. I think there is a lot of people loving Careem here. So maybe I'll start with Asma first. And kind of understand what triggered you to leave Careem and go on and join Mamo Pay, right?
Yeah, so when I joined Careem, it was quite early and quite small. So 2015, actually, Wael was there at the time and I joined his team. But it was still early stage. And I really loved that energy. And I really loved my experience growing the company and scaling the company. And after 4 years at Careem, as much as I loved it, and I'm so grateful for the experience and I got so much out of it, I felt like I wanted to do that again. I felt like I wanted to go somewhere small, and I was actually looking for something even smaller than when I joined Careem because I wanted to complement that experience with testing out something at the very early stage. So when I joined Mamo, I joined as the first employee. So really going early. So that was, for me, I think the early stage startup is what I really enjoy.
And probably you, when you were at Careem, were you part of the early team that joined Careem, and you kind of liked that what challenges the early stage brings, right? And that working against all the different challenges with different teams and putting different hats on, and I think this is what you wanted to duplicate with Mamo, right? Is that exactly what?
Yeah, exactly. So over time, the role becomes a lot more specialized and deep in an area, which was also great and an amazing learning experience. But I really personally enjoyed wearing a lot of hats, like the chaos of the early stage, doing a bit of everything. Yeah, so for me, it's just a better fit for what I enjoy personally.
Great stuff. Excellent. Thank you, Asma. So you've mentioned energy, the chaos, the working, the challenges. What about you, Wael? What made you kind of leave Careem and go into the venture space?
Yeah, so I think if you reflect back on the Careem journey, Careem, to a great extent, has been a catalyst of hope for a lot of entrepreneurs. And if I were to give an analogy for it, I would say, you know, in a completely different space, we had the previous kind of panel had a person that was in sports and the Olympics. But if you look at kind of sports world records, right, you'll find that there is someone who has the world record, and then many people are trying to break that world record, and it takes years and years to break it. But as soon as that first person breaks that world record, the previous record is broken multiple times before. And I think there's something in there about the power of visualizing the ability to succeed. And if you look at Careem, in my mind, the biggest impact it had to the ecosystem is making people believe that you can build a startup that is impactful, that is meaningful, that can go to this scale with this type of energy, with the type of mission that they had. And I was seeing, you know, the impact of that, especially after the announcement of the Uber acquisition of Careem at the time. And, you know, many more people had hope that we can do that too. And it's not like, yeah, I have a theoretical knowledge that we can, but I've seen it happen. There is an example of founders and a team and doing it at really, really massive scale across the whole MENA region, Careem being in so many countries. There is a way to do it that's not theoretical. And for me, I was thinking, wow, there's many ways you can help the startup ecosystem. And I was kind of driven by, the goal of, I think no matter what, anyone who's been part of the Careem journey is probably like bleeding green inside all the time because of the values and the mission that Careem had. And you're always looking for impact. And I felt that going through a venture capital space while understanding the founder mentality, understanding the operating mindset, knowing the type of hustle, the type of kind of organization that you have to build, the type of ambition that you need to have. I wanted to kind of be part of helping more and more startups do that.
Amazing. So we're adding to the list of energy, the learning curve that you go through within a startup, and the beauty of kind of being creative. We'll add on top of it impact, and that you can actually see the change that you're creating, right? And you can see that you're actually contributing to that change, which obviously can be felt multiple times in the VC space, right? You can, by backing those startups and the founders, by working very closely with the founders as well. So with that in mind, Bassel, my question to you is, how different is it, Careem, from when Asma and Wael were there? And what kind of motivates you to continue this work with Careem after Uber's acquisition?
Yeah, it's a great question. In terms of difference, I'd say it's as crazy as it was when Wael and Asma were there. And it's driven by the same forces, which is its purpose and its mission of simplifying people's lives and building an awesome organization that inspires. That same purpose is still at the core of everything we do. And so if you think of what we've done, yes, it might look like success, but we're still at the beginning of what we're trying to achieve. Our region has 700 million people, and we're supposed to simplify these people's lives. But if you do the math, we're really touching barely a small percentage of them. So if you think of the big picture, we're still at the beginning. Yes, we've done a lot. We've gone through a lot of hurdles and achieved relatively some success, but it's a marathon, and we're still at the beginning of it. So there's a lot to do yet for this region, and there will be a lot of these success stories that will even grow out of Careem. What makes Careem special to what Asma and Wael said is, the promise of getting the best people, top talent, attracting top talent to this region, giving them an opportunity to actually work on something that's impactful, meaningful. There's a lot of people who are attracted to impact. And at Careem, you are given that opportunity. And then third is just being around people who share similar passions, similar goals. Like Asma and Wael are 2 of 100 people who actually left Careem and are part of a startup, a venture that is continuing to create impact on the region and this specific tech ecosystem.
And probably I want to continue with you, Bassel. I would say you've been with Careem for a while now. I want to understand from you what are the main elements you would say Careem brings in that makes the difference in people's jobs every day, right? People coming to the job every day, and you feel that they're lifted, they're uplifted, they're motivated. What would you say probably maybe the top 2 or 3 things that the Careem culture brings on board for that legacy to continue?
Yeah, I think it starts with people. Especially in startups, they're not machines that are well-oiled and running on their own autonomously. In a startup, every person actually counts. So when you focus on the best talent. And when I say best, it doesn't mean only functionally or technically, but also the values these people share. When you focus on the right people, that's number 1. Number 2, once you have the right people in, you have to empower them and trust them. And I think that's what Careem does. It gives these good people an opportunity to be creative, to think outside the box, to lead things. Most of the ideas that came out of Careem aren't coming out of just the leadership or the founders. It's coming out of everybody who's there. They're seeing a problem and they say, let us solve this problem. And you have the green light to actually put your effort behind anything and see where it goes, whether you fail or succeed. And so I would say, yeah, people, trust and empowerment, and number 3, values that keeps this group of people aligned and focused on the mission.
Beautiful. So those 3, would you say, Wael, is that what you kind of maybe took out of your Careem learnings in a sense and kind of try to embed them in your work as VC? Or do you have another list of learnings that probably you took from Careem's days?
Yeah, there's a lot of there are many things of the Careem journey that I kind of have internalized over the 5 years that I've been at Careem that, form part of my filtration criteria when I'm looking at startups now. There's a big element of it that maybe Bassel touched upon that most people don't realize is important, is you're looking at people. At the end of the day, when you're an early stage venture capital organization or an investor, you're looking for number one people, and then everything else is secondary. And I know it sounds very counterintuitive where you need to check the business model, and of course you're going to do that. But at such an early stage where so many things can go wrong, you're really checking for the founders and their ability to build a strong team around them. And when I break that down further, there's elements of it that have to do with how they are, their ambition level, their problem-solving capability, they're just, all of the things that kind of make them have the drive to kind of tackle big problems. But then also kind of their core kind of values and mission purpose, are they mission-oriented or not? Because starting a startup and going down the venture route of venturing into new unknown territories, it's actually quite hard. It's very taxing on you mentally, physically. It's very tough. I mean, I think everyone who's been part of the Careem journey early on, they were taking on the burdens of kind of making Careem succeed as if it was their own company. And all of us have gone through moments of extreme stress and so on. And you need to see, what brings you over to the other side of the hill, where you're reaping all of the rewards, is you having, mission and your purpose very clearly defined, and then being very good at executing towards that while keeping that there. So it's one of the counterintuitive things to put that much weight on when you're looking for a startup, but it is absolutely the make it or break it, especially for an early stage company.
What about from a culture side of things? So I'm totally aligned with you in terms of people and the type of people they are, and you've got to be a certain material to actually make a vision come true and to kind of seek it to fruition in a sense. But what would you say some of the cultural elements that Careem has created within that you're trying to see those little things happening within the startups that you guys invest in? What would be, other than maybe empowerment, kind of hiring best talent, what else? How do you create that culture in a sense?
I mean, if you look at, again, Careem, when we started off first, almost every single person in Careem can tell you what Careem's mission and purpose is. Every single person. I can recite it to you today. I know it. To simplify and improve people's lives and to build an awesome organization that inspires. I think everyone who's been there long enough has absorbed it, right? And when you recognize that you're building people who are so, so much of believers into this core concept, no matter what happens, you're going to keep going and going and going, right? And building a culture, over time at Careem, at one point Careem started articulating its culture and their values into a culture handbook as well. And I think, again, every single person kind of at Careem understands this at the next level of detail, so that, no matter what, you can continue going. I would say, obviously, early on in a startup, you're not necessarily articulating your culture in a full handbook, and the way Careem did it happened as Careem grew, but at least they need to be aware of the kind of their purpose and their mission, and that will get them through whatever the crazy journey and the toughness that is out there ahead for them.
Love it. And Asma, maybe over to you. Would you say the reason why everybody knows and had this mission and vision drilled in, right, with all that passion towards the same cause, would you say that was possible due to the kind of knit, close culture that was there in Careem, that there was no really kind of a hierarchy in a sense, right? Everybody kind of worked together towards one mission. Would you say that would be true? And what would be some of the learnings that you took and kind of are implementing within Mamo Pay right now?
So I'll reiterate how important the aspects that Wael and Bassel talked about, but I would say this idea of being aligned on the mission and purpose was so critical to Careem's success. And that's kind of what created the culture, not really the other way around. So if I think of my example, I joined the product team. I was hired into the product team. And I had never done product before, so it wasn't hired from my skill set. I had also never worked in a startup before. So what brought me to Careem was being so aligned on the founders' mission and what they were trying to build and the vision and just like what Wael was saying, the idea of having that shared purpose. And that in itself is really, really powerful. So it goes back to this focus of hiring the right people, not just skill set and not just potential, which is also very important, but also on values and also having like shared goals. So I think that is so key. And for me, the biggest learnings going into a new startup and trying to build another success story is the idea that, so culture is so important, but it's also so complex. So how do you replicate it? It's one thing to have gone through it and to say Careem was such an amazing culture. Everyone who was there will talk about how much they loved it. Not just today because of the success story, but even before Careem was anything. It was just going to work every day like this is what we want to be part of. So even having gone through it and understanding and having that experience, replicating it is a whole other thing. So understanding what it took to make Careem successful and what it took to make that culture so unique and taking elements of it and building it in a new place. So yeah, I would say like people is definitely the number one thing. Hiring for the right people, for the right fit, for having shared values is the number one thing. And then I think for me, another learning that was very, very important from Careem was just the obsession of building a great experience for the customer and being so customer-centric in everything we did. And I think this is kind of what translated also into such a, great outcome for Careem, and like even until today, it's such a good experience. But that, for me, that's also something that I'm taking is like, how do we make a culture and a company which is so customer-centric, because that's very important as well.
Love it. And I want to build on top of what Asma said and maybe get Bassel's view here on corporate innovation is and has become one of the main things that a lot of SME sector, along with large and medium enterprises, are looking into to try to replicate some of the success that tech companies are bringing in, but obviously as well to bring in some innovation into their workspace and to kind of stay up or ahead of the game in a sense. And I think what I'm sensing from the conversation we're having here is that beyond the technology, beyond the product, right, and beyond hiring great people, there is a way to cultivate innovation, and there's a way to cultivate that creativity, right? So, what would you say would be, imagine entering a corporate that has been out there for 20, 30 years, and they're trying to kind of renovate that culture and bring in that innovation that Careem had from day one, right? How would you say they could create that from within, and what would be a few elements that they can learn from Careem and try to replicate in their own organization?
Yeah, I think you have to start with the problem. Focus on local problems, because if you're an entrepreneur and this is your passion, doing something on your own, you're going to start with a problem. If it's not a local problem and you're just focusing on something that you've seen somewhere else, the starting point's not good. It's more of a copy and paste approach, and if you're not solving the local problem itself, then you probably won't have the best solution. And so that focus is super important. Understand the context of it in your country, in your region, in your specific city. That's probably the best starting point, solving local problems. The second one, once you identify that, you have to get obsessed, and I think Asma touched upon this, you have to get obsessed with the customer experience. You are solving this problem for somebody. It could be a merchant, it could be a consumer, it could be a business, it could be anything. There has to be some obsession around satisfaction of that customer. Otherwise, someone with more money, another different solution will come and trump you, right? And then these are the two things that will actually drive innovation within, whether it's in the corporate or in the startup world. Because the other thing that's Careem already created impact around is what Wael talked about. It's already been proven you can come and do and build something big, meaningful, raise the right to funds, even exit in this region. That's already been proven. And that was the second part of the mission. We didn't think it was going to be such a big hit. We always focused on the first one. We always thought we will impact more customers more than anything else. We didn't realize the success of Careem will actually generate so many different entrepreneurs. You're not going to change this region with one Careem. Careem can be so large, it can impact so many people's lives. But imagine you have 10 or 20 Careems in this region. I guarantee you our region will look very, very different in terms of the people we attract back here, in terms of the new ideas that come out. Imagine 100 people coming out of every future Careem. I think that's some of the impact we've seen. And so yeah, I'd focus on local problems. I'd focus on the customer obsession.
Yeah.
And then finally, people. You're not going to do everything on your own. As a founder or as a team leader, you have to have people who are better than you. Hire for people who are better than you. And these things will create a flywheel of innovation.
Thank you so much, Bassel. And I think just to kind of wrap up, I would love Wael's opinion here before leaving the stage. We saw a lot of ex-Careems opening startups, and they're now creating the next kind of wave of startups that are out there. What would you say would be the best advice you would give any aspiring entrepreneur, being obviously in Sharjah Entrepreneurship Festival? What would you say is the best way to kind of go out there, start their own company? What would you say could be an ideal journey for someone who is aspiring to start a company?
So I think there are many different areas that you can kind of focus, but I think number one, I think I'm just going to go back to what Bassel has mentioned. Start off with a problem that you are very passionate about solving. Take a step back from that problem and figure out a bigger purpose for what makes you passionate about this. Why is it you want to solve this problem for people? Because you might discover that there are many different paths. I can solve it in this way or that way or another way. But your obsession with making sure that whoever you're solving this problem for, you want to do it well and you're going to do whatever it takes to go there. It's basically figuring out the broader purpose as to why this gives you energy to solve. Because solutions come and go, but that purpose will always remain, and that problem to be solved will still continue to remain. It's funny that, I'm an engineer by training and education and a product manager for many years. One of the first rules of doing product is obsess about the problem, not the solution, right? And it's very much kind of the core of what a startup should be, is that, I'm trying to solve this problem or attack this opportunity to solve for your customers. And as long as you obsess about making sure that you do this in the best way and build your proper team around it with the right purpose as to why you're going after this, you're going to get there.
Love it. Thank you so much, Wael. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in this panel. Please, a round of applause to our panelists. Thank you so much.